Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Homeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jargus. Today I'll be doing the last part of J. Allen, the chronic miasm, Psora and Pseudo-Psora. Hahnemann says that there are three errors we are liable to make. First, selection of the improper remedy. Second, the improper potency. And third, not letting the remedy act for a sufficient length of time. So Dr. Hahnemann says that these are the three errors which a physician is most likely to make. Number one, most important, is selecting the improper remedy. And second is the improper potency. And third, not letting the remedy act for a sufficient length of time. The main trouble lies that we don't study the directions given in the Organon properly for the laws and principles governing the action of the disease or of the drug. So he says that we have to study Organon properly because Organon gives everything on how to find out the correct remedy, which potency to give, and how long to wait. We always spend our effort in studying the remedies and their proving. So most of the physicians will do what? They will spend most of the efforts or their time on studying the provings and the remedies. They will ignore the practical part of Organon, which is given in the Organon text. We neglect the other vital part of the principles, the third law of motion by Newton. He also says that we neglect the vital part of the principle, that is the third law of motion by Newton. It says the action and reaction are equal but opposite. We see a similar law which applies to optics also. It states that the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of refraction. Thus, if you deflect the life force in disease or in health, the law of reaction or the law of reflection will apply itself. The result will be a more profound expression of the disease or disease process will be manifested. If after giving a deep-acting antipsoric medicine, a diarrhea sets in, we treat it either by antipathy or homeopathic means, especially when the remedy does not cover up the totality, the curative action of the antipsoric remedy is at once arrested. So he says that he gives an example of that. If we treat a case with a deep-acting antipsoric medicine and a diarrhea sets in, and they either can either treat it by the antipathic method or the homeopathic method. And he says that especially when you're taking a remedy which doesn't cover up the complete totality. So what will happen if you choose an impartially selected remedy, then the action of the remedy will be arrested, or the curative action of the antipsoric remedy will be arrested. If the latent symptom of Psora develop after giving the indicated antipsoric remedy, it should be remembered that it will soon subside and that the cure will take place. So if you give the indicated antipsoric remedy and the latent symptoms of Psora develop, it should be remembered that you're on the right track, the correct medicine is there, right potency is there, you've given enough time for the medicine to act, and the cure will definitely take place. Thus, when Psora or any other miasm have existed in the organism for a considerable period of time and it has exhibited its symptoms, when we treat it homeopathically with the antipsoric remedies, some part of these manifestations are again presented. So, when the psoric miasm has existed in the body for a considerable period of time and it throws out the expression in the form of signs and symptoms, we have to treat it homeopathically by taking an antipsoric remedy. And some parts of these manifestations are again presented. So when you give an antipsoric remedy, what happens? There will be the old symptoms which come up. We can now come to know the curative action of the indicated remedy. So when the old symptoms come up, we can come to know that we are on the right track. The medicine has the curative action of the indicated remedy. Thus, it is one of the strongest reasons we must not interfere with the action of the well-selected antipsoric remedy. So when the antipsoric remedy has thrown out the original symptoms or the old symptom of the disease, then we have to just wait and watch. And that is why he is telling you that this is the strongest reason why we must not interfere with the action of the well-selected antipsoric remedy. So let the antipsoric remedy exhibit itself to the fullest. Let the old symptoms be thrown out. Just give some time. These old symptoms will disappear and the curative action of the antipsoric remedy will definitely take place. It is true especially when the highest potencies are used. So when the highest potencies are used, this type of reaction will be seen. Hahnemann says that the fundamental rule has to be followed. Quote, in treating chronic disease is this, to let the carefully selected homeopathic antipsoric remedy act as long as it is capable of exercising a curative influence and there is a visible improvement going on in the system. So the fundamental law, the rule, rather the fundamental rule has to be followed. This is from Hahnemann's quote that he says that when you are treating a chronic disease and you have selected a well-selected homeopathic antipsoric remedy, let it act and let it influence and let it create an influence of a curative action, and the improvement will go on in the system and the cure will take place. So just wait and watch, be patient, don't be in a hurry to change the remedy or the potency or to give the second prescription. There are certain conditions which are expressions of the miasm in the pathological term. It comes under special names like cachexia, dyscrasia, diathesis, predisposition, etc. So when the miasms are the expression of the miasms, when they go into a pathological state, you can name them under special names like cachexia, dyscrasia, diathesis, and predisposition. It may have a single miasm or all the miasms may be present. So a case could be with a single miasm or multi-miasmatic when more than one miasm or all the miasms are present. Thus, the miasmatic expression have to be carefully perceived by the observer physician. So this is very important that whatever miasmatic expression is there, a carefully knowledgeable physician should be able to identify it. We have to see the sin, which is the parent of all the chronic miasms, therefore the parent of the disease. So whatever sin is taking place, that means whatever deviation is taking place in the vital force, it is because of the inherited miasm, or it is because of the either single miasm or more than one miasm which is present. So therefore, you have to see the sin, which is the parent of all the chronic miasm, therefore the parent of the disease. So whatever sin you are committing, it is in the form of the miasm present in the body, and this miasm present in the body will give rise to expression. Therefore, it is the miasm becomes the parent of the disease. Thus, disease cannot have any other origin. So the origin of the disease is nothing but the miasmatic influence which is present in the organism. The orthodox school failed to recognize the idea of the vital force and adopted the physiochemical method, which was in fashion. So, as you all know, the orthodox school, they failed to recognize the vital force and they only adopted the physiochemical method, which was in fashion. Or basically, they tried to identify the materia peccans or the bacteria, the virus, the fungi, which were responsible for the disease condition. And this sort of method was in fashion. In the study of Psora, we must look into how it potentially bonds with the vital force. So when you want to study Psora, you have to see the interaction of the psoric miasm with the vital force. When the miasma bonds with the vital force, it causes physiological deflection. So when the vital force is deflected, it becomes a disease condition. What happens? All the physiological processes also will be deflected and the normal functions will be disturbed and there will be physiological changes going into the pathological ones. Therefore, it says that we must study the bonding of the miasm with the vital force and see what it causes on the physiological level. So it causes the deflection. It causes functional disturbances and the physiological changes, ultimately going into the pathological changes. It will begin with functional changes and later on structural or pathological changes will develop. So initially to begin with, when the deflection takes place, the functional changes are there. And if we do not give timely treatment, this functional disturbance can go into the pathological change. Thus, we can give an accurate prognosis of the disease by knowing the expressions of the miasms. So, if we know the expression of the miasms, which miasm is there, we can definitely give an accurate prognosis. As you all know, the psoric miasm is there, the prognosis is good, psychotic is fair, tubercular, it is variable, and syphilitic, as you all know, the prognosis is very grim or very poor. As we study miasms, we see they express themselves in degrees of action. So, as we study miasms, they have their own action. It could be an acute miasm, it could be a chronic miasm, it could be a latent miasm. So, physician has to perceive in each and every case whether it is an acute miasm, whether it's a chronic miasm, or whether it is a slumbering or latent or a sleeping miasm. The secondary or tertiary expressions come under the headings of pathology. So, whatever secondary or tertiary expressions are there, it will come under the heading of pathology, like cachexia, and so on and so forth. So initially, the physiological changes will be there, then going towards the pathological changes. These pathological changes are nothing but the secondary or tertiary expressions, which come under the heading of pathology. Thus, all pathology originates from the secondary or tertiary manifestation of the miasms. Primary action is purely function. It has no pathology. As you all know, the primary action is the action of the medicine on the vital force. It is purely functional. It has no pathology. It is only the reaction that gives the expression the physical form. So this reaction, when it takes place in the body, the reaction of the drug towards the expression, then only it gives rise to the physical form. Thus, when miasm bonds with the life force, say the syphilitic miasm, it is seen in its primary, secondary, and tertiary manifestation. So when any miasm bonds with the life force, especially, for example, say the syphilitic miasm, it will be seen in all its expression, that is the primary, secondary, and tertiary manifestations. Thus, the whole organism gets involved until every expression of life, physical, mental, moral, or even spiritual, begins to show the false processes and alteration in life or health, which means of the whole organism. So that in short, what happens when the miasm is in the body in the latent state, it involves the whole organism. So what is affected? The physical level is affected, the mental level is affected, the full life is affected, the moral or even the spiritual level is affected. So in short, the whole organism is affected at different levels. Thus, we can see the subversion in idiosyncrasy, dyscrasia, predisposition, and even in certain forms of temperament. So, therefore, these masped activities can also be seen in idiosyncrasy, in dyscrasia, and predisposition, and even in certain temperaments. They are all due to perversion of change and become prominent when the organism due to action of the chronic miasm. So, what happens? All this is because of the perversion of the change, that is from the physiological process towards the pathological process. So there's a perversion, there is a change. And this change occurs, or this perversion occurs, because of the chronic miasm which lies in the body. So that's all. So I finished up the full book of the GH Allen. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope I've simplified it for you. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.